Hi, my fellow comic collectors. This video is I'm going to show you some of the major comics that I got in the last week. And I kind of want to give you some hints on how you can add major keys to your collection without paying major prices. Okay, so I like to buy like key issues from like the silver and maybe bronze age. If I can get golden age keys, that's even better, but that's pretty hard and usually out of my price range. But I'm going to show you some tricks that you can use to get really good prices on expensive books, normally expensive books. So I'm going to show you the three keys that I got, and then I'm going to give you a little story about how I got them and the prices that I paid. The first one is Justice League of America #1. So this is the first issue of Justice League of America. Not the first appearance of Justice League. That actually happened in Brave and the Bold #28. But this is the first issue of the series of Justice League of America. And it's just kind of a cool issue. It's also the first appearance of this character, Desperado. And it's just a cool comic. I just, I always wanted to get this. It's a pretty major key. In this grade, it's for about 2,000, but I paid about 800. So how did I do that? There's a site called Comic Link. Now on Comic Link, it's a pretty, if you're collecting comics, you'll probably know this site already. But one of the mistakes that people do is they have two options. One is that you can buy via the auction. They have like an auction and you can bid. And generally the bids go just like eBay. It's like pretty expensive. People kind of drive up the price pretty quick. But they also have what's called an exchange. And this is people that are listing their books. And it's actually almost like a reverse auction. So in like the original asking price for this book was I think 1,500. Okay, so it's pretty expensive, but you can put a bid on for like half that or $1 if you really want. They might not accept it, but you can put like a lower bid, and so you can basically give a best offer, kind of to put it like in eBay terms. So the point is, and sometimes they accept it, and because of that, you can get pretty good prices. So you sort of find comics you like and give a good price that you can afford, right? Another thing that I did is I bought one that is restored. Now, a restored copy is generally not as valuable. The way I usually like to think about it is based on the restoration. You can usually take, instead of being a 3.5, you can sort of imagine it being like a 2.5 or 3 maybe, because the restoration really kills the value. It reduces the value. If it's a green label, then you can almost take the value of whatever the value is at a 3.5, you take that and you chop it right in half. That's how much the green labels kill the price. But usually with the purple label, it reduces the price a little bit. Now, things that I look for in the restored is this up here where it says, I'm not sure if you can see that, but it says slight restoration. Now, the restoration that was done on this one is a small bit of glue. And it's just like a little bit of glue on the spine where somebody tried to seal the spine from where it was splitting. It's a very small restoration. It's not something that really impacts the comic. So when I see that kind of thing, you can even remove it. You could actually take the comic out, remove it, and it would probably still grade at a 3.5, but then it would get the blue label. So when I see that, I'm not so worried about it. So I kind of look at what the level of restoration is, and then I sort of judge whether or not, how much impact that would have on the actual price. So in this case, I don't think it would have that much of a negative impact on the price. So that's why I saw it as a good deal. So yeah, so that's Justice League of America #1. The other key that I got, and it's another restored one, was Hulk 181. Now this is a Bronze Age key. It's kind of a major one. First appearance of Wolverine. I actually consider 180 to be his first appearance, but I'm kind of a I'm a little bit of a fringe on that opinion, because even Marvel rates 180 as being his first appearance, but this is what's considered his first full appearance, and it's kind of a cool one because not only is it his first appearance, but it's his first appearance on the cover where he's like really showing his claws, he's showing what he can do, and it's just a really cool first appearance of Wolverine. Now, this restoration that was on this one is a little bit more. It was a much more involved restoration. So I knew that that would dramatically impact the price. Now, 4.5 is a mid-grade. And I knew that the restoration, if you look at it, again, it's slight. I don't know if you can see that. I'll just take it out of the thing a bit. You can see that it's a slight restoration. So the restoration on this one was the cover was reattached. Again, probably the cover had come off and it was reattached with glue. So somebody put a little bit of glue on the around the staples just to get the cover to stay. So it was, again, a small restoration. So when I see that, I'm not as worried about it. Now, of course, a cover detach is actually a pretty major grade deduction, but I kind of like, it's a good cover. It's just, it's a pretty nice grade to get. So in a way, I kind of don't mind that it's restored in this case. And I wouldn't remove the restoration because, I like to keep that, higher number. The one thing that you should see is like, if it was like, usually when it's cover detached, you're looking at maybe a 2 that the grade would go down to. But the good thing about this one is that the cover is quite sharp. It's a very sharp, like you might not see it in the camera, but it's a very, very sharp cover. So I kind of was willing to make that sacrifice. Now I paid about $1,000 for this, and it's probably worth about $1,800 based on the grade and the restoration. So the way I got this was a different strategy, which is another strategy you can use to get really good prices on some of these rare ones. So what I did was I actually bought this through eBay, and I got it using a method where I was putting out alerts. Like I was just, every time somebody listed Hulk 181, which is pretty often, they come up pretty often, I wanted to get alert. So it was put on, and he put it on a very good, fair price. And I said, okay, sure, I'll get it. Because I really wanted this one. I was looking for it for a while. I've been wanting this long before Wolverine was even a movie. I just really wanted to get this comic. I really like Wolverine as a character. And I just really, really wanted to get this comic. And so I put an alert out. And so once it came up and it came at a good price, I said, sure, I pulled the trigger on it. Also, another trick that I did when I got this one, he had it actually at a little higher price. But what I did is I contacted him and said, hey, look, can you do a little bit better price? And then I was able to negotiate a little bit down. Not much. Maybe I think I saved a couple $100. But the point is, having these alerts, having these kind of things where you go and say, hey, look, can you give me a bit of a better price? And see if you can get even that little bit of an extra discount. So that's what I did with this one. Just a couple tricks to save myself a few dollars. It's still an expensive book, like $1,000 for a comic is pretty expensive. But it's such a major key, such a great thing to have in my collection. I've been wanting this one for a long time. I wish it was a higher grade. I wish it was a blue label, but you get what you can afford sometimes. Sometimes no keys is better. Sometimes low grade is better than no grade. I guess is the get the key issues when you can. Now the next one is another major comic that I got, and this is a low grade as well. This is a blue label. Again, I got this from Comic Link, and it's a 2.5. I paid $1,700 for this one, so it was more expensive. But in this kind of grade, you're looking at probably 2,500 to 3,000 range. Usually, if you look on eBay, you can probably see it around that range. So I got it a little bit cheaper. Again, I did the offer. Uh, the shipping was what kind of killed me. It was like 70 bucks shipping. That's one thing that kills me on Comic Link is the shipping's kind of brutal. Um, it's shipping to Canada. That's the big problem. But it's a really great one. It's Avengers #1. It's the first team appearance. It's actually the story for the movie where they fight against Loki. That's Loki right there. It's just a really cool one. It's like got Ant-Man. It's got the Hulk. It's got Thor and Iron Man. So it's just a really cool comic. It's a sort of an iconic cover, and just another key that I always wanted. I personally collect a lot of Silver Age, and I really want to get to that in a way, because what happens now is you see like a lot of these comics, and what they'll do is they'll have like 20 different variations of them. They'll have like multiple printings, and some of the prices for the like second, third prints and variant covers is really crazy. I've seen some go for like $10,000, and it's a modern comic. There's no justification for it. They're not necessarily. They're usually like any comic nowadays. If you're not getting a 9+ grade, I don't know what happened to that comic, but usually they're going to be pretty minty because it's brand new. So with these, it's much harder thing. Like people didn't like in 1963 when Avengers #1 came out. People didn't take care of their comics. They got beaten up. A lot of them got destroyed. A lot of them got thrown away, and so they're much more rare. And the characters have really built up over the years. They've really established themselves. So they're not just more rare, but the characters are much more iconic. So when you get these modern ones that are new characters, you never know where those characters are going to go. They might be hot now, but they might not be hot in 20 years' time, let alone 60 years' time, like Avengers #1, where it has all these characters that have been popular for 60 years. So I can never justify spending $2,000 on a modern comic, but I can really justify spending that kind of money on a Silver Age, or maybe Bronze Age, or maybe Golden Age. I'd love to get a Golden Age comic in that kind of price range. So when you're collecting, try to avoid this hype for these modern comics. Try to look at more of the established comics, because I really think that you got to be a little bit nervous about some of the hype. If you can get it at cover, good for you, but don't pay thousands of dollars for a modern comic. It just doesn't make any sense. So that's just a bit of my advice. I hope some of my tips help you find some of these golden and silver and bronze age comics, because I really think that's where the money is, because those are going to hold an investment long term. I always see comics from an investor's side and from just a pure love side. I love these iconic characters, and I want to have them in my collection. And I don't think the modern comics, the stories generally aren't as good. There's a few, like Donny Cates is a really good writer. There's some really good writers that are, but for the most part, most of the modern comics, the writing's kind of crap. sorry to offend anyone, but it's true. It's just they're not at the same level, and these older ones are just that much better. And so I really do believe that in the long term, these are the ones that people are going to want to go back to, especially when they get older. Like there's always that sort of 20-year gap. And when I'll explain what that means. Like when I collected comics originally, it was in the early 90s. And I was young, had no money. And so I'd get like whatever I could afford. And I always had these ones that I really wanted, but I couldn't afford. And then 20 years later, or 30 years later, I had the money that I could afford to buy more expensive comics. So what ends up happening is there's other people that are also in that kind of same generational gap, where they collected comics when they were kids, but now when they get older, they get nostalgic and they go, well, I really would love to get that comic that I never could afford. Now I have some money saved, and then they're more willing to spend the big dollars. So you'll find that comics from like maybe 20 to 30, 40 years ago are going up in value because that's where the people that really love those comics, they're now old enough to afford the comics that were the grails of that time. So be aware of that. And the modern comics could be the same thing. Could be that like 40 years from now, Miles Morales will be this comic that everybody has to have 40 years from now, and it's going to hold its value. It's going to be worth like a Action Comics level, Action Comics #1 level kind of comic. I don't see it personally, but it could happen. But always try to have that long-term kind of mentality about the way that comics are going to be valued. So, I can see spending a couple $100, but not spending thousands of dollars on a modern comic. So this has just been some of my feedback. I hope this has been useful, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to have like a pretty cool one that's going to come up soon, where I'm bringing a whole bunch of keys that I just purchased that I'm going to show, and I'm going to tell you how I got those very cheaply too. So there's a couple tricks that I love showing this because I love collecting comics, and I hope I can share that love with the people that are watching these videos. So thanks for watching. Bye.